The following is a special presentation of Tony Kurre Radio.
Welcome to the inaugural Home Field Advantage, a brand new podcast here on Tony Kurre Radio. Of course, you can hear this show at least 5 days a week. We have not set up a time, Teresa, to air this show, but it'll run every single day during the week. And of course, it'll be up on our podcast, wherever you get your favorite podcast, Audio Boom, iTunes, wherever you can find this show. And of course, watch it on our YouTube channel, along with the 17 or 18 other wonderful podcasts we do. But she's Teresa Autrey. She's with Exit Realty. And this is a show that I've been wanting to do for since 2008, since the entire market just fell apart. Unfortunately, I haven't been doing podcasts that long, but since I've been doing podcasts for like 4 or 5 years, I just thought this would be a perfect show to do because everyone's got questions about real estate. Everyone's got questions about mortgage rates. No one knows why there's not enough homes to live in. Why am I spending $2,100 a month on rent when my neighbor is spending $1,200 a month on his mortgage? So we got all these questions, and there's so many different things to get into. But first of all, thank you so much for being part of a Tony Kurre Radio, and thank you so much for being part, of course, of a brand new podcast that I've been just dying to do. And welcome into the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited because I too thought the same thing. I wanted to educate the public and let them ask all the questions they need to ask to make them have that trust into the realtors in the real estate industry. And I'm so excited. And, it was kind of funny how, I sent the message and then we didn't get the message and so much changed. And then I felt like it just all came together at the right circumstances under the right time, especially after the NAR lawsuit, the election year. So I was like, hey, let's figure out some way to get this out. Real accurate information to the best of our knowledge. And being with Exit Realty Birmingham, I also have an international company behind that supports us, international, national, region, local. And we have a great broker owner system. And so things are going really good. But, having almost 3 decades of experience also helps maneuver and get through because a lot of people are so nervous right now. If you've done it. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead. No, continue. No, it's great.
I was going to say, if you practiced real estate years ago, there wasn't a buyer's agreement. There wasn't all these paperwork. And I make a joke that for every paragraph, there's a lawsuit. So some of us that practiced before this came out see the problems that is going to entail that maybe the leaders at B didn't understand would be problems. And so all we can do is educate the public and hopefully bridge that chasm between knowledge, information, accuracy. But your question about why aren't we so short on home sales?
Oh man, I mean, listen, I got so many things I need to hone down and get specific because otherwise the show is going to be all over the road because there are so many.
You ask me and I'll answer.
But this is not. I want to obviously have topics and we want to get into an election year situation that we're talking about, and there's obviously a lot of big questions going on. By the way, your number is 205-294-4210. That's 294-4210, myexit.co. If you need some more information about her wonderful store out there in Kurre, and you have a great shop, by the way, it's right there next to a bank, which is super, super cool. I reached out and was doing some research this morning. Mortgage rates continue to drop, yet no one's still buying homes. Maybe it's too soon. Then I saw a poll about, how low do the rates need to go in order for people to jump back in to real estate? There's so many working wheels here that one wheel's got to move before another wheel moves. But something you and I discussed several days ago, and we talked to each other almost every single day. It's an election year, and I think that's really fascinating. We're less than 70 days away from electing our 47th president. Typically speaking, over the last 46 presidents, what happens to the mortgage rate? What happens to home buying? What happens in your line of business in an election year?
So I'm a numbers person, and I love numbers. The one thing I wanted to focus on, because I did my research, I wanted to make sure I had all of this correct. So real estate, you didn't actually have mortgages till after the first war. Yep. And it was basically because you had to put 50% down. And a lot of people just didn't have it. So
50%?
Yeah, back in the day, you had to put 50% down to buy a house. And then when the people came back from the war, VA started helping veterans get back. And the women were home, so it was just difficult. Well, you get through that period, and then you get to the 60s and the 70s, and then you got Vietnam going on and things like that. And in 1971, since 1971, when they came out and in fact, it was 80%, 20%, all the way to 1997. In 1997, they came out with a program called a Flex 97. And that meant 3% down FHA. And we thought we were in heaven. Us agents thought, wow. And so we were so excited. So I've been doing this since I was licensed in 1997. I've been practicing since then. I love real estate. I love our country. So everything I say, I want to make sure that we understand. I'm saying it for the betterment of the public and the real estate industry as a whole. So since 1971, every time there's been an election year, even in the 80s when interest rates was 24, 25%, they managed in some way to get the rates down. Now, I actually pulled up some statistics and I went decade by decade, president by president, election by election. And most of the time during the elections, like one year they went from 12% to 9%. You know, when I bought my first place in 1996, I think, or 97, we had great credit. We had all this stuff, but it was still 8% interest FHA. Yeah. Now, people are complaining about that, but that's nowhere near 1980 when it was 22 to 24% with 30% down or 40% down. So, and being in the building industry, you have to understand that due to COVID, there was stop on supplies. I mean, I remember walking into Lowe's one day, the one 2x4 was $3.33. The next week, it was $9.99.
Crazy, yeah.
And rarely does construction costs go back down after it's escalated. Mm-hmm. So I don't lay blame on anyone because I believe it's a collaborative effort. I don't care who you vote for one way or another. We're talking about American people, their lives, their families, their children, the future generations. So when I started looking, I realized that this is the first year we've actually not lowered rates. And it's not just that. We have a shortage on housing, like in Birmingham right now. I look, the numbers are, we're short 14,000 houses. Now, does that mean you can price gouge? No, you cannot, because sellers think, oh, well, there's no houses, I'm going to get $1 billion. You still have to be realistic.
Yeah.
Location and price are your main two things. Then your terms and conditions get better. And you asked earlier about the rent. Well, when rates are that high, then when you go in and housing inventory's low, then you do have to rent. Well, the people that kind of stacked up in the formative years and bought homes and repaired them, and maybe they didn't flip, maybe they rented them, they are getting astronomical rates. I mean, right now in Helena, Alabama, you can get a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, 40-year-old apartment for 950 square feet at $8,000 a month.
Oh, that is insane. That is crazy. All right, back up a little bit because you're giving me so much information, and I knew you were going to do this because you're such a great interviewer and you know what you're talking about, and you're an expert. You're the best person I know in this field. Again, myexit.co. Her number is 294-4210. She's Teresa Autrey. We're going to be doing the show every single week. If you got questions, info@TonyCurryRadio.net. Info@TonyCurryRadio.net. Send your email questions. We'll talk about those. You mentioned that the rates had never gone down or never had not gone down in election year, but the Fed is getting together on September 18th. Is that correct? And everyone's saying correct, that they will be dropping the rates. So that record will hold true. What do you expect that to be happening on the 18th? Is that why right now, despite the fact the mortgage rates going down, people start jumping back into the housing industry?
Well, it's not just that. Even if they do go down, you still have no inventory.
Yeah.
You know, people are living in homes that they are not used to living in because they can't buy what they are used to living in because it's not there. So I have a huge background in new construction, but that takes time. And if the supply chain is bad, however, some people think, and this has been forecasted, that because the baby boomers are living longer, that when they die off, which I guess in 20 years it'll solve our problem, well, they think that, but what they don't understand is people are having more kids today.
Yeah.
They're more family friendly today. And younger people are waiting a little bit older to get married. So that affects things too.
It seems to me that
buy a house.
Yeah, it seems to me the biggest issue we're having right now, and you throw inflation out, throw economics out, throw all this stuff. We just stopped building houses at some point. It just seems like you said you were 14,000 homes.
when the COVID happened, people got nervous. They got scared. They paused. And then when you have one contract out there and it's $400,000 to build this house, all of a sudden your lumber cost has gone up $75,000 extra dollars. You can't build that same house for $400,000 anymore. You just can't do it.
Yeah.
And it's just a lumber package. So then it's you're right. Every spoke in the wheel has a role to play.
So it appears to me that we need more home builders, and we need to finance and allow them to build as many homes as they possibly can, particularly when the rates go low. How do we fix that? Is that something that's down the road? I mean, if I had enough money to open a home building company right now, I'd take everything I had to do it, because it seems like everyone just needs, everyone's just looking for a nice 3.2 for 320. That's what everybody wants. $320,000, maybe 320 is a little too high, but everyone's looking for a $300,000 house that's a nice 3.2 with a decent school. I mean, is that asking too much?
Not right now. You can still find that, especially in the Shelby County area, some of the outlining metropolitan areas. You know, you're talking about Kurre, Leeds, Moody, McCullough. You can still find a really nice house for that. And you've got the comparable school systems. However, what a lot of people, it's the formative ways. If you hadn't sold or bought a house in 20 years, you probably, and I say this to everybody, you need to consult with a realtor, whoever you deem that to be your person, and then consult with your bank and all that sort of thing. Do I advise anybody just jumping into building? No, but I will tell you that I know a lot of good custom builders, and they're almost a dying breed. Because those guys right now who have the quality, who have the 30 years experience, who have the reputation, who have the money, they're covered up.
Yeah.
And they're building houses that were $1 million to $7 million right here in Birmingham, metropolitan Alabama. And you're sitting here going, well, how do I get me a good builder? Or people don't like tract builders. Yeah. They just don't. They don't want a big D.R. Horton, or they don't want an Adams Homes or something like that. They want something that they can walk in, see somebody. You know, COVID shut down our country, really damaged the social aspect of humans. And we're meant to have that social interaction. And so AI is wonderful, but AI is not a human.
Yeah.
And just like when we have a housing inventory shortage, not every house is going to be what you just described. So say if I got, well, there's 4,000 listings, why aren't they selling? That goes back to location, price, schools, whatever you need. There's a huge need right now. And you may laugh at me about this, but all my mentors are wonderful, and they're much older than me. And I've been so blessed. But I've been doing some research, and it's the senior, nice, simple neighborhood. You know, that's what they're wanting, the 55 and above. So they don't have to deal with everything under the sun, the pool that's got the parties going to 10 o'clock at night, the clubhouse that's rented out for every baby shower in the world. And, you know, you can't ever get to, you're paying your HOAs and you don't even get to use the HOA. So a lot right now is what we're gearing up. And I hope that we have some builders that will come through with this, is that they would deal with that on a generational level. Because a lot of people may not need to be in the Mountain Brook school systems or Vestavia, but they wouldn't mind living, say, at Grants Mill or over in Tressville or Calera or Alabaster. Yeah. You can live somewhere on the outskirts and still get a really, really good deal. Yeah. And then also pick and choose what you actually need. Do you need heated floors? Do you really need them? Or is that a want?
Not in Birmingham, you don't know.
It's sometimes about just
I got heated floors now. I just opened the front door and it's just hotter than hell in here. It's the whole floors are hot. Teresa Autrey, she's with Exit Realty out there in Calera.
Birmingham.
In Birmingham, I'm sorry.
Yes.
In Birmingham, and I was looking at your business card that says Calera on it.
Yeah, so it was. I think when I gave it to you, it was when I was doing this week.
So I want to make sure I'm right. I'm doing my homework. 294-4210, myexit.co. I'm already getting ahead of myself a little bit. And again, I just got to chill out, because this is a show we're going to be doing. I think we could probably do the show for like 10 years and not do the same show twice, because it's a business that's constantly changing, and hopefully we'll have
ever evolving, and you either change with it, you grow or go. That's what we
Yeah.
call them.
I wanted to ask you because I know I'll get an email about this because it's topical and it's brand new news. But what happened? What's going on with the buyer-seller agreement with the home buyer and seller paying their what do they call that when I got to pay you a percentage? I basically as the seller I was having to pay the buyer and the seller, and then the other person was only paying one side. Can you explain that to me? And what did they just agree to do and how that changed your business?
Wow, I didn't know that was going to be a question. I might need a filter here.
No, I mean that's what we're talking through. But I mean,
you want my opinion or you want my professional?
No, I know you. I know you hate it because I know it's probably cutting into your cost a little bit. But I mean, I just closed on a home about 2.5 years ago or 2.5 months ago, and I have no clue. No, I guess it was 2.5 years ago, and I have no clue how it works. I just showed up, told me what I was going to be getting out of my house, and I was like, okay, and I'm writing a check for this person, right? And I'm thinking, wait a minute, this is not my realtor. This is my realtor. Why am I paying this gal to buy my home when I've got my own? And why isn't she paying this and this, that, and the other? And I don't understand how that works. And I guess my biggest question is what changed? What did they agree to do?
Well, they settled. And so now all the buyer's docs had to be changed. And what they want is the seller will pay the selling agent and the buyer will now have to pay the buyer's agent.
Okay.
And you think, well, that's no big deal. But how many first-time home buyers have 10 grand sitting at home just to pay a realtor? You can't add it to the price because if you do that, then it may be unappraisable. We dealt with this before this issue ever existed. So we can't talk about numbers of commission because it's always negotiable, but the commission is taken off the top of the transaction. That is discussed and handled before you get to the closing table.
Yeah.
So a good realtor is going to inform their clients, hey, this is the new law. On August 17th of this year, the law changed. And we can no longer, like it is against the law. If you call me and say, hey, Teresa, we've been friends 40 years. Let's go look at this house. I can't do that. I cannot show you that house.
Why?
Mom, dad, sister, brother, children, nobody. What I have to do is explain to you, RECAD, the Real Estate Consumer Agency Disclosure, the different type agencies that our brokerage offers, which I'm a full service broker. I'm going to do everything. And then now I've spoken with my investors, my sellers, my builders, and they're all like, no, we're going to pay because what they figure is that if the buyer doesn't have the money, say they only have 10% down payment, well, you can't take the down payment and pay the agent. Now, some people do have enough money to say, I'm going to pay this percentage of a fee. All fees are paid at closing to the qualifying broker, then the broker pays the agent.
Okay.
So I hope that explains how that works.
Yeah.
However, what happened was they felt and this is the way they looked at it. I do not agree with this, but this is the way they looked at it because an attorney charges to close the loan. A realtor charges to work the process, buyer and seller. That's all taken off the top. You don't see any attorneys being sued because it's split between buyer and seller, do you? And they don't work for either. They work for mostly the mortgage company, or the investor, or the builder, or whoever. And so it's just very difficult when you have to look at a first-time home buyer and say, you know, the new law says you have to agree to pay me this, and that's got to come out of whatever you have to do. Now, like I said, my builders might say, no, we're going to stay the same. We're going to pay the buyer agent, and we will write that in there, and we will prove that. The other law was that we can no longer offer compensation in the MLS services, period. You have to old school call, text, email the agent and say, what kind of buyer's compensation, buyer agency compensation are you offering, if any at all?
Okay. And
if they say, yes, we're going to offer it, how much? Then you say, let's just for the purposes of this, let's just say it's 7%. We're going to split it 3.5%. Let's just, for everything's negotiable in real estate, but for the purpose of this, if you do that, then it's like the closing costs are taken off the top. Now, the seller, when you sell the home, you look at it like, well, man, I'm paying it because it's taken out of my proceeds.
Mm-hmm.
However, the buyer looks like they're paying it because they're like, well, I had to get a mortgage to cover it. So it's really offset.
Yeah.
You see what I mean?
Yeah.
And as long as you explain it to people properly, then that's what you do. However, unfortunately, people want to not obligate themselves. They don't want to sign nothing, and you do still have the people out there, well, mama told me I'm not signing nothing ever.
Mm.
Well, you have to figure out a way to see that house without a realtor, because we're now bound by a law, and we will get fined, and our brokerage will get fined if we break that law. And the commission does do test cases.
Okay. Teresa, Autrey, man, I mean, you're answering the questions brilliantly. And of course, my pen is just, my paper's on fire because I'm writing down so many more questions. And there's so many, I'm thinking of so many different shows we can do just based off this original show. And this
We got another show next week, right?
Well, yeah. Well, this is our inaugural show. And so I got all it's all coming out. And so I got all these questions. And certainly we're going to be breaking this down because we could spend 30 minutes on talking about all kinds of different things, including, for example, for sale by owner. This kind of started with, leaving your car out by a busy street, for sale by owner, rather than going through the thrifty nickel or going through a dealership or whatever. And people they're like, well, hell, why don't I just save that money and sell it myself? And those people didn't realize just how instrumental, important a realtor was when they realized how much they had to work. Now, of course, through Zillow and Rocket and all these other things, now all of a sudden you don't even have to be at your home anymore in order to show it. You just have it clean. They put a lockbox on it and blah, 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 blah. The thing that I love about you and the business in this show is, like all things, the cream of the crop rises. And so while everyone and their mother I remember like 10 or 15 years ago, everyone's getting a real estate license. Everyone's going to do a side hustle and make 10 or 15 grand a year by selling homes. So I'm like, okay.
You got to spend more than that before you get your license.
Oh yeah, I mean it's crazy. I got like 15 friends that all got real estate licenses and they haven't sold a home yet in their entire life, but they've got it. It's something they want to. And so, because they realized just how difficult and how hard it is. And then interesting, in 2008, when we went through the whole banking thing where the government came in and bought everything out, they were buying dealerships and everything else. And they're like, okay, we're going to get you out of this, but you have to do it by our rules. You found the best made it through, right? The biggest banks made it through, this, that, and the other. And so I know, you being in real estate since 1996, 1997, that you know how this works and you're the best at it. We only have a few more minutes here, and the show has flown by, and I knew it would. And I can't wait to talk to you again. I don't know if doing the show once a week is going to be enough because it's constantly changing. Let's just talk about, though, we were talking about the Fed's September 18th. It's amazing to me how instrumental the Fed is when they're talking about interest rates. And of course, that biggest interest rate, credit cards and homes, how much it moves the market. I mean, it's crazy. If the Fed comes out and he's got a smile, I remember Greenspan. I mean, I remember him just because.
Alan Greenspan.
I mean, if he came out,
world down to listen to him and the president.
He would come out and he would smile. And I remember people saying that Greenspan's in a good mood, and the market would go up just because he was in a good mood. And if he had a sour stomach or food poisoning the night before, the market went down because he didn't look like he was particularly happy, even if he had some good words. Can you just talk a little bit about how instrumental that is, and do you get excited about when the Fed meets? I mean, it seems like I thought the Feds met like once a year. Now it seems like they're meeting once a month. How often can they meet? How often do they meet? And does it make it exciting for you as a real estate person, as a pro, to know that those rates are probably going to be going down on September 18th? Well,
number one, I think if you're just asking me, I project that they will go down, but it will be a forced go down. Like the parties that be right now won't have a choice because the public is tired.
Yeah.
They're tired. They're fed up. Us agents are tired. It feels like we're being jerked around. The public feels that way. I think it will be a pressed issue that will force it. However, this is what I also tell people. I heard this a long time ago and I really don't care for it, but it was like, marry the house, not the rate.
Okay.
Because think about it, say if you did buy the house between 6 and 7, there's only about $100 difference.
Yeah.
But if your family's going to get into that house at a good price in the school zone you want, what's $100?
Yeah.
If it's over $100, you need to look at that because most people can find a way to trim the fat enough to make up that $100. Most of the time, it's about $25 when there's a thing in the interest rate. Now, the difference is right now, some people are offering buy downs. Some people, like a lot of the builders, they might get bulk money locked in. Like they're going to lock in and give their clients a 4.99, but they're locking in $500 million at one time. They're not locking in a $320,000 home.
Sure.
So my first thing is, yes, it's going to go down. It's always went down every year since every election year since 1971, even in the tough years, even in 08. I mean, even in 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. However, I think it will be forced. I don't think they're going to automatically do it, number one. But number two, the necessity is you have a group of people that want the low maintenance, low cost homes. That's the millennials and that's the senior citizens. Those are your heavy markets right now. Now, the first time home buyers and the family people, they're going to have your traditional homes.
Mm-hmm.
So in my opinion, if you can find the right home, I don't really care what the rate is. I know people that held mortgages during 08 to 12 that were charging 15 to 17% during that time because they couldn't make their monthly payments.
Yeah.
And they were offsetting. So when people would come in to rent, they would offset it because they're like, well, I owe the bank $1,700 a month, but listen, I got a renter in here that's going to pay $1,500.
Mm-hmm.
Something's better than nothing.
Sure.
And there was a long period of drought. We don't want that again. We don't want the turbulence. COVID really did a number. And I believe that it's going to take a strong, fearless, competent, intelligent business person to lead and a unity into the direction where we're going to get back to where that first time home buyer can buy a house $250 to $300 and you're going to be okay. I also believe that if it's a matter of $25 or $50, stop your Starbucks. Don't eat at McDonald's. Do something to get yourself in that home because they always say, number one, we never know what's going to happen tomorrow. Mm-hmm. No one's got a crystal ball. But I will tell you, over being in this industry 3 decades, that what history has proven. And every time we come out of a slump, it's not a big blow up bubble. Right now there's a lot going on with crypto. There's a lot going on with the Brink system. And there's a lot going on with America being reconsidered for some of the money. And so it's when you see something like that, in my opinion is very nefarious, you need to get the train back on the track.
Mm-hmm.
And you need to get it going in the common direction so that the American people benefit.
Yeah. Teresa, great stuff. Wonderful first show. You answered.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
No, I'm excited too.
Can't wait for more questions.
Oh, I know, man. Because and again, if you've got any questions, you're listening to the show, info@TonyCurryRadio.net, info@TonyCurryRadio.net. Send those emails in. We'll answer your emails or questions and we'll talk about it. And Teresa will be here and through good and bad. And what's amazing to me is a lot of people advertise when times are good. And I'm like, that's not the time to advertise. I know you have extra money when times are good. I know that. But when times are bad, that's the time to get out there and do it because I can tell you right now, your competitors aren't doing that. And I know times are tough and that marketing money usually is the first thing that dries up. Okay, what are we going to cut back on? It's our marketing. And that should be the last thing that you should do because you know how important it is. And we need to stay out there and you're the best. I don't need to tell people you're the best. We're friends and I've known you for forever. And so I'm just happy that we get to shoot the bull for 30 minutes every single week and do this podcast. But info@TonyCurryRadio.net. Again, myexit.co. And they can find you. Again, give your phone number out and what's your email?
It's Teresa Autrey, Exit Realty Birmingham, and it's 205-294-4210. And it's just teresa.autrey@gmail.com. And that's just teresa.autrey@gmail. Okay. And I do that so I can get unlimited mail. But the last thing I'd like to end on, Tony, when you asked about the rates, you have to remember war, fees, famine, babies, not death, whatever. The 7 things will always happen in real estate. People are always going to be born. They're always going to die. You're always going to get married. You're always going to get divorces. You're always going to have babies. And then you're always going to get promotions or you're going to get job cuts. Yep. So those people have to have somewhere to live no matter what happens in their life. Yep. So I think if us as an industry can put the faith back in to the public's eyes and raise that industry standard by communicating proper knowledge and answering all the questions, then I think that we will be a much better position 6 months, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year from now.
And maybe something we can get into next week here on the show is I've been a homeowner for 30 something years. Because of a divorce, I had to sell the home I was in. I didn't want to because her name was on the deed and I knew she wasn't going to sign that deed over to me. She wanted me to sell the home because she's
be careful. Be careful what you put on your deed.
Oh, yeah.
You need them to get off your deed.
I mean, seriously. And so, I had to do a situation where I had to refinance the home. And obviously I couldn't do that because I just picked up a job where I'm self-employed and no one wants to give a self-employed person a loan, period. And so I knew it was going to be difficult. But now that I am in a rental for the last couple of years, I will say my rent is much higher than it would be with a mortgage, which sucks. And I really like a lot more, like $600 or $700 more a month. And I could think about what I could do with that money. There is the idea that I don't have to cut my own grass, and that if my toilet breaks, I don't have to fix that.
Benefits either.
And there's no tax benefits. And that's obviously huge. At the end of the year. So there's all kinds of different ways to do that, despite the fact I'm a 58-year-old single man and I don't, I got 3 kids.
I look 58. I didn't even think you were in the 55 and over category.
We don't get me in a house soon. I may be 59 before next week. All right, Teresa, thank you so much. We'll catch up next week.
Thank you so much for having me.
This has been a special presentation of Tony Curry Radio.